Hi everyone, welcome inside the Academy here at Chesterfield Golf Club. It's lovely to have you along for another video. Thank you very much for joining us. My name is Warren Bennett and we've got a sleepy Trev walking around, so he shouldn't be causing us too much bother hopefully. But he does have his tennis balls, so you might hear a few squeaks here and now and again. Today's tip is all about trying to create more speed, natural speed and distance. And this is also going to help your striking as well. Because what we see at the Academy here is a lot of people trying to force the issue in the golf swing, when generally you see a lot of top players and golfers who can repeat their swing and generally hit the ball quite nicely and consistently, have this element of their swing. So what I'm talking about is something that I've talked about in a lot of videos actually. When we think about all our blending of our different body parts, leg, body, arms and hands. This is mainly going to be about arms and hands and creating a bit more lag and a bit more late hit. But we're going to do it through a few different sources, so let me start. So Trev, I can't start with you being there, but right, okay. So first of all, I'm going to show you what I mean. So what we're going to do, if you can take a golf club, we're only going to swing it to kind of halfway back, which is always left arm parallel, and we're really going to feel probably wider than we normally would do. So what that basically means is we're still coiling and twisting, but we're allowing our arms to be much wider here. So you can see halfway back from the behind view, I haven't got my arms back here. I've taken my hands and club quite straight, obviously slightly inside the arc, but you can see here with my arms, especially my right arm is well away from my body. From here, what we're going to do, we're going to really jam it in. So we're not going to do anything with our legs yet. So we're going to go wide to narrow, wide to narrow. So the wide and then narrow. So you can see what's happening here. We're kind of not really doing a lot of hinge, which I do recommend, but for this exercise, we're going to feel the hinge very late. So hinge whilst you're bringing this right arm in and touching your side. So it's a wide to narrow, kind of you're cracking the whip, wide to narrow. Now that's not everything, we haven't introduced much legs yet, this isn't our golf swing. Remember, we're still twisting, so we're still, from the front view, if I stop here, kind of mid-hinge, we're still coiled and still twisted, and the shoulders are still turned, and I've coiled my torso. So I'm still creating pressure. Now there's good pressure, so the pressure on the shaft, which you see a lot of these top pros in the transition, especially the driver, the shaft is bending. What they're actually doing is they're putting pressure on the shaft, and this is what this exercise is all about, because it's the hidden power that creates the strike, the pressure, and obviously the distance. It's not standing there on tiptoes doing a Happy Gilmore, running and hitting it harder, because as much as we try and create more clubhead speed down there, very hard to, and the ball won't go any further. It might go a few yards, but all the effort with no reward. This is the opposite, because the internal kind of the engine and the speed and where we source all this power and where we keep it is happening in the transition. And we'll go on to the next phase with introducing a little bit of legs at the same time. But at the moment, wide. So it's your right arm basically doing this. So it's like wide, so it's like basically you're straight to bend. Not really doing a lot with our shoulders, we're not twisting out away, keeping it nice and gently. But we're going wide to narrow. Not a big long swing, we're not getting our arms and hands up here. Keeping it kind of head high, and we're just kind of feeling this kind of wide to narrow. You can see this, I think it's concentric circles, isn't it? Where you circle outside and circle in. So you're really creating this narrow in a good way. And plain from the front view, you can see I'm really narrow and everything's kind of club still back here. So I've got quite an acute angle. So wide to narrow, not a lot going on in the bottom half yet. Obviously that's a short version of a golf swing. But you see that short version, you can see the club's behind my head now. So the lag and this kind of Sergio move, which you don't actually have in your golf swing, but it will help to introduce a little bit of this. So I'm not after you to be able to create the Sergio look, not at all. But what you don't want to do, you don't want to have your hands too close to you, and to create power you're doing the opposite. So I'm trying to reverse that early casting and early extension. then you're not creating any internal storage or any power. Okay, so now we're going to introduce a bit of leg action as well. So in the previous video, I don't know if it was the last one or a couple, I was going on about the lateral, and so this is what we're going to do. We're going to kind of, at the same time as this kind of arm does this straightening, our left side is going to go a little bit towards a target. I'm not going to sway off, I'm not going to kick out, there's just a little bit of sway, probably a few inches, kind of your pocket as I look down, and knee is over my left foot. In the trade it's called posting. You're kind of posting over this left side to be able to pivot correctly. So we're going to do those three actions. So nice and wide, in and post. In, lateral. So now the internal, so you're creating this pressure on the shaft here, and you'll see it from the behind you, I think, is kind of this club cracking that whip. But you're all doing it properly, you know, and all these ingredients are kind of all entwined with each other to then be able to give you something to release. So there's the external kind of getting rid of. So a good exercise for that. Well, let's just go back to that little feeling here, not too wide in the stance. Why I say that is if you're too wide in your stance, you haven't got really any range of motion. So I always like narrow stance because it gives you a little bit of freedom to move a little bit. Okay, wide, drop, narrow, narrow. With a little bit of movement of that left pocket, you see, both pockets are kind of going towards the target. Only a little bit supple, but the backswing into transition doesn't have to be supple. Trev, you nearly got hit there, buddy. That was a close one. Okay, so you can see I'm trying to push out to Trev and then really miss him on the inside. You can see that. Having Trev there is quite a good one because I'm like, club's nearly hitting his body and then I'm really diving in and missing him. Wide to narrow with a bit of movement this way, which is going to help the narrow. And then from there, we're going to get rid of it. So a good little exercise. That's why you kind of have a light grip as well doing it, because the lighter the grip, so obviously if I do it with one hand, I'm wide about Trev here. Trev, wide out the other hand. Good boy. Sorry about that. It's a bit intrigued for some reason today. Probably because it's really raining hard outside. I said in the last video, or the video before that, spring has sprung. Well, not today, it hasn't, so we're back indoors. So it will be soon. We'll have summer soon, hopefully. So great exercise. Why we have a light grip when we play is you'll feel it if you swing with one hand. If you swing with one hand, obviously the club is much heavier and you'll be able to create this speed. So I can't really do a lot with the bottom half, but I'm going to feel a little bit lateral, wide, narrow and release. You can see I'm not really doing a lot on the top half yet. You can see the amount of speed I can create. I'm not really trying. In and release. We'll get to the fourth and final kind of feel is the release bit. We'll go into that in a minute. So a little few practice swings, nice and light. You don't actually have to squeeze this very hard. Let the weight of the club do the work. You're just giving it a little direction with this elbow. And then release. So let's get on to the release bit. So the feeling, you know, it's like any new thing. If you're not used to it, take your time. I can always say, take your time. Just break it down. Feel a bit of right arm to start with, wide to narrow. Let the club just fall where it wants to. There's no control here. Very good friend of mine who's a pro. Shout out to Neil. Neil always said, to gain control, you've got to lose it. And I always remembered that. So thanks for that, Neilus. To gain control, you've got to lose it in golf. So what that actually means is don't worry about where the club goes. Let it just fall. Let it fall. Fantastic. One arm swings are brilliant because it makes the club heavier, so it wants to fall. You're just giving it a reminder about where we're going wide to narrow and release. Wide to narrow and release. One arm swings, head nice and still, a little bit of sway. Forward, lateral drive, let it fall, because lateral drive, like we said in the previous video, allows it to fall as well. So we're creating lag in the right way, right arm still bent here, and pushing through to the target. Because that's where the pressure is. So we're putting pressure on the shaft and pushing through to the target with the bottom half. Head stays pretty still. I know that's quite a lot to juggle, but once you start doing this first ball in the air, second ball in the air, you'll get it. If it's new, it'll take a bit of time, don't panic. The release factor is basically, you've got angle, you're going to get rid of angle. So basically from here, the club starts catching up with the hands. The hands still go forward, they don't just stay still. They still move. You still get the roam. So when you think the right arm goes straight to bent to straight again. Talk you through that one more time. So remember, still always coil, straight feeling. Remember, it's an exaggerated feeling in exercises. Straight to bent, back to straight again. Okay, let's try a few. Always a bit weird when you try a few at the start, because you're kind of practicing something new. Remember, we're not going to go full backswing, we're going to feel a bit of these. So in my head, I've got wide, bent, a little bit of drive, and let it go. Wide. Ooh, that's quite strangely out the middle to start with. Remember, every time you practice, it should take a bit of time. 30 balls, half an hour, have a few practice swings, unless you're in a rush. Wide, at home as well, you can practice without a club. Move the kettle to boil, bent, straight, wide, bent, straight. You don't have to do a lot of the top half. It gets pulled along for the ride. If you're over the topper and you want a great bit more speed, naturally, remember, bent, wide, crack that whip, crack that whip. It's like an exercise back in the day, Aldo exercise. I don't know if you put a video out, better or something, I can't remember. And he had the ball, and he was trying to throw the ball down into the other ball. Basically what he's doing here, he's keeping it bent here and he's throwing it, getting rid of that pressure. So he creates the pressure, gets rid of it. Creates, gets rid of it. Let's give it a go. Creates it, get rid of it. A bit late, held on to that one, ball finished fast, get rid of it. It's a bit closer. One more time, I'll do it without stopping this time. So it's a bend straight, bend, a bit closer. Difficult, doesn't have to be done perfectly. It's like anything, you're trying to create feel. So when you come to hit the ball, you just hit it. You don't really want to be taking this thing out of the golf course, but you can take definite elements out there. Great exercise. I would hit one more, but Trev's there. It's just moved away. So one more quick one. So remember, in my mind, I've got straight, bent, little bit of drive, maybe just as an afterthought, and then straight and release it. We'll take this a little slower this time. You'll be amazed about how much crack there is down the bottom without having to try and create it with your top half. Right, so that's the end of today's video. Give it a go. Any questions? Love to hear from you. Like anything, everyone's got their different faults and good faults as well. So hard to layer everything perfectly. But remember, we're only trying to swing not like Rory McIlroy, not like Justin Thomas. No one can. But you just need a few little elements of this in your golf swing. You don't need to actually change your golf swing. It's just a feel, maybe 10-20% of it. And then you should be better. Remember, anything new, nice and slow to start with. Give yourself some awareness time, some feel time, and off you go. Those practice swings and everything would be great, especially those one arms. Right, so thanks for joining me. Love to have you along again, and I'll see you on the next one. From myself and Trev, cheerio.